I saw this AI like advert,
Mhm.
and it was this meme of like disgusted face, like, ooh, hanging out with friends, or like lifelong friends. Happy face, hanging out with an AI chatbot girlfriend. Like, that's horrifying, like that we've reached the stage where AI is now like saying, don't hang out with actual friends.
Why would you want to do that?
Hang out with a
So,
program made by you so that you can say whatever you want and it'll agree with you.
so you're saying that the meme was also created by AI, do you think?
I think it was a human,
Oh.
but it's worrying because like even looking at job things, there's like the top job results for like part-time and stuff is like train AI chatbots. And I don't want to take that job ever because that's an active that's a problem.
But you could work for the resistance. You could.
Okay, the funny thing is, Kevin, there are people who probably there were times when like there was like an AI on Facebook where people purposely fed it misinformation so much that it had to be removed because it was saying Nazi rhetorics. And people were like, "Oh my God, this is the greatest. We can literally make this robot get pulled offline because we filled it with so much hate." And like it's crazy that we're in a time where that's not just novelty, that's a real thing now that people are worried about. Like, okay, so AIs are useless and being force fed to us. They're like, okay, fine, feed it misinformation. It's a weird time we live in. Weird time. And we're back.
And we're back. And we're back. Well, it's good to be back.
Yeah, good to be back.
Super exciting show today.
Andor season two, first three episodes. Wow.
Andor season two, first three episodes. Wow. It's good to be back. I mean, you know, the like it's great to be back in in deep Star Wars, I would
Yeah,
say.
it's
There's a lot of things, there's a lot of things to talk about.
oh,
Where would you like to start?
this show, at least the entire show, but definitely these three episodes, because it's been so long since we've watched
Mhm.
the first season, feel the least Star Wars and more human side while still being super Star Wars. Because
Interesting.
it's not about I'm saying it's the least Star Wars thing. It doesn't have space wizards and like
Mhm.
clones or like these like big mystical things. It's grounded
Right. It's
human
okay. Yeah, yeah.
things.
It's very human. You're right, actually. That's a very good observation.
That
Which I think is
a benefit.
well, let me say that of the things that I've reacted kind of big and small, I would say that's also what I'm reacting with, right?
Hmm.
And trying to, uh, you know, of course, bringing it all back to, Luke and very beginning, right? Star Wars is just so powerful, right? And
Right.
now there's a whole universe and stuff,
Hmm.
and so like
That's why we
you
made this show.
well, yeah, and but also you're kind of protective, right? Like every time they're doing, like obviously Disney, bless their hearts, we love you.
Yeah, we love you.
We
Don't
love
sue us. Don't sue us.
love to have our show carried on your network, only
Yeah.
for the money. But anyways, so you're worried about that, or you're trying
Yeah.
to see how it's going to happen. But the point well taken in terms of this is it's very human,
Hmm.
and even before you also said, when we talked about this offline, about how it Star Wars is often like combat and military and things like that, and
Right.
this is
Big action stuff.
well, and this is stuff in the, there's a Tatooine field, or in the, not the desert, but the kind of,
Jungle desert, basically.
well, there's that side. I meant more the wheat fields and stuff, or
Right,
whatever it is,
right.
right? There's like the farm, there's the farming, there's a few different stories we're following to see where
Hmm.
they all intersect and
Right.
whatnot, and watching how it happens. But anyways, you're right. It's less crazy tech, it's less crazy technology, it's less crazy people, it's not space. They're not
Right.
trying to wow us
With like
necessarily.
big, like a lot of money thrown at this big explosion. It's more like subterfuge and
We know the tech, except for maybe the new spaceship, right? That he doesn't know how to
right,
fly.
yeah,
So
like that's also a part, I'd say, like a human aspect.
yeah, right. There's a humanizing, and it's interesting how they're doing it. There's a risk there, right?
Right,
Because
yeah.
what are the things that we've seen that come close to breaking some of those kind of golden rules that
Yeah,
I said that even maybe go back to Star Trek, right?
right.
Uh,
There is definitely that one almost scene that I don't think I will say, but if you watch the show, there
Right.
is that,
There's sexual assault.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
a
an
sexual
attempted
attempted
sex.
sexual assault. That's true. That's a very good example. I was thinking more about the promotional video
Right, yeah.
that you really
When you think of Star Wars, you think of big battles and like maybe a few obviously, character moments where like they sit down, talk about their emotions or talk about this world. You never think about, oh yeah, in the off time, they watch TV maybe? You don't think
right.
like, and obviously that's what that was. Like they pulled
Mhm.
down the screen and showed like almost like a
Well,
1960s advert for
right.
like a visiting like a
Uh,
spa somewhere in the
or in other movies it might be like visit the off world or move to the
right,
off
right.
world
Like
or
come to
yeah.
this place.
Yeah.
It's got a quaint little,
Right. All the
it's
original inhabitants have moved out.
yeah. It's a beautiful planet where we've kicked out all the inhabitants and paved over this area that you can have a safe, nice, relaxing spa while the locals
Right.
all starve.
Yeah.
Eh,
So,
So it's
yeah,
yeah. There
so
is that we don't.
and what's interesting in a way is that there's an aspect when you go into the Star Wars universe originally, or you get caught up in the stories, you kind of forget about your own world and you try and
Right.
immerse yourself in this other world, and you're so caught up in like the chase or the battle or the
Mhm.
victory or the whatever it is, all this stuff
You don't
that
step.
well you don't you forget that people have like normal lives, right?
Right, right.
Like the normal people leave Tatooine
Y-
behind and we never hear the stories again, sort of,
right. Yeah. These a lot of movies are amazing because they make you forget about the real world. They make you
Hmm.
forget for like an hour and a half or more about
Right.
like the troubles you face and all the human aspects. They immerse you in a world of like whimsy, of like action, where it makes you feel like you could be the main character, that you could save the world, and that's amazing. But
Hmm.
it's interesting because we have seen obviously aspects of normalcy in the Star Wars world, but not like this. This feels almost like the scenes of in between of all the big moments, because in
Right.
between those moments, you have to have these small moments of like
The interpersonal
workers.
stuff,
Yeah,
and
you
yeah.
have like
We've seen it's interesting. We have seen bits of it. We definitely saw it in the first season when they
mhm.
were in the city and just aspects of sort of normal life,
Right,
right? But but and we've seen it maybe in some other ones where you see like interactions like
people having jobs, like
or yeah or just yeah just and some normalcy amongst like I don't know the uh, all the military people, right? Because there's
right,
so many military people in this in Star Wars, right? There's
right.
and all that stuff. But uh yeah, this is just kind of interesting in that way that or let's say there have been a few things where like normalcy bleeds in, where
Hmm.
things that we can relate to kind
Right,
of bleed in and
right,
almost, right? Like is when you recognize it, like are you breaking the wall sort of? You know
right.
what I mean? The
There's another thing I want to touch on. This show also feels human in its choice of struggles. They're not
Mhm.
fighting this big empire. They are rebels. They are ants that have to move in quick, take a little bite and back off so
Mhm.
that they can piece together maybe a weapon that could harm the Empire. Because like in the first season, there was this whole arc of them making plans to steal the credits for like a month's supply in
Right,
that one base. And it wasn't like this ultra important mission. It was steal a bunch of money and get out. And
right.
it had errors, it had mistakes and cost people lives.
Yeah.
But like that was a human aspect, like a down to earth kind of
Hmm.
feel, even though there was, the wonders of it. And
Hmm.
that's what I feel again with this second season. Like there's a scene for like the first three episodes where, or at least two, where there was like a small, a singular cell of like 50, literally 15 rebels who are starving and waiting for this one thing. But because they they are all different rebel cells, they have no real communication between each other, and
Right.
that
Yeah,
leads to
yeah.
them literally
Right.
killing each other
Right.
because they're
They don't
not part of
they
this
don't know
big
what's
military thing. They're part of a
yeah.
single cell.
Right. And it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. So now we're talking about there's a bunch of different stories going on,
Hmm.
right? And so now we're talking a bit about
Cassian Andor.
Cassian and when he lands on this place. He steals a plane and lands in a place, and yeah, and you're right. Like now there's rebels. They're actually part of the part of the same fight, but they don't know there's miscommunication.
Right,
It's
and it
like
leads
war
to
and
in like
struggle and
you don't
yeah.
s- you see the rebel most almost all the time you see the rebels either winning or working together and not killing each other,
Hmm.
not being incompetent because
Hmm.
well not exactly incompetent but like they literally don't know what the hell they're supposed to do because they're waiting for this one person to give
Yeah.
them orders but they haven't and they end up killing this person off screen that was supposed to meet with Cassian and so like shit, this is what actually happens in this kind of
Right. No,
rebellion
it's yeah,
stuff.
it's
Like,
it's it's good. It's a
miss,
good point. It's like the
it's a
chaos, the
rebellion.
confusion. It's not like, oh, we're gonna super organize and then we're gonna jump in a plane and go and defeat the whole empire.
Right. No,
Yeah,
it's
they're
chaotic
working on it.
most of the time, completely by accident. Because, like,
Mhm.
again, these are like farmers who are angry with the empire because the Republic didn't tax them this much, but now the empire is, taking all of this stuff.
Right.
And like,
Or I mean, I think some of these people are also understanding that there's,
oh yeah, obviously that like
fascism or whatever you
obviously,
want to
yeah.
call it coming down. I mean,
Obviously, yeah, like there's obviously, people who are always gonna be angry,
right,
fighting the good fight. But there's also people who are doing this because they're humans. They're having
right,
issues with the empire because they're doing it this way and that way.
right, right.
And
Or
obviously,
just too much or
right.
whatever. Right.
So, they band together, but these are just normal dudes. They don't have this
Yeah.
big overarching plan. They just
Hmm.
want to hurt the guys and escape.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there've been stuff in Star Wars before that have, anyways, it's interesting, like if you wanna portray the worst kind of organized evil in cinema, you still kind of reach to some sort of stylized version of Nazi
Yeah.
Germany, right? And that's definitely, you see that in
Oh,
some of the characters and so
hope, hope.
in a lot of a lot of stuff there and yeah, there's obviously a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of current issues in terms of or they're touching or in whether purposefully or not, because Andor was already headed in this direction before, but
Right.
they're
With like
really
modern day politics, it kind of feels
yeah.
like
Well,
this is
that's what I
fuck,
mean.
this is literally the kind of like the stuff that's happening out there.
Yeah, like they're definitely touching on concerns around authoritarianism
Hmm.
and all that sort of stuff, and
Yeah.
so which all kinds of Star Wars stuff have done, right?
Oh
If
yeah.
not an empire or a republic or all those
Hmm.
issues around organizing humans and conflict, and
Right.
Star Wars is nothing if not, dealing with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
But
and dealing with like modern stuff and like
mhm.
and speaking about modern stuff, let's talk a bit about the tech in Star Wars.
Yeah, so that's another thing, right? That we haven't trying to think. I guess it was the kid-oriented Star Wars was the last one that was released.
Skeleton Crew, yeah.
Skeleton Crew, and I only watched the first one of that. I haven't watched the whole series.
Yeah.
So we haven't really had a chance to like dig into like a real, right? We both loved Andor before, and so
Hmm.
it's anyways, there's a lot of different things that we've noticed, right? There's so much stuff like we're back in the universe and
Right.
how what part of it are they showing us and all that.
Hmm.
Um, so the tech is one, and sorry, I just remembered one little snippet I wanted to say before we dive into the tech, although they're related. They showed a date on the screen, which you recognized,
Yeah.
BBY
For like either BBY4 or for
for
BBY.
BBY, and it was clearly set up like a date, so I didn't know what BBY was, but at the same time, I've never seen them because
Right.
that's kind of how we got into all this Star Wars stuff. Is it's like all of a sudden, the what was the show? Sorry, I'm just blanking on it. Not Skeleton Crew, but
Ahsoka?
no, the Seven series, the one that you started watching.
Mandalorian,
Oh no,
Skeleton,
the animated series that you
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars.
So the point was is that like Clone Wars, I didn't realize was part of the was building
Right.
on the real stories, not just
It's
some
not like, yeah, it's
characters,
not
but it
some
was
alternate universe. It's
yeah,
part of
it's
the
part of it,
story.
and it created this universe. And so here was, but my point was is that like whenever we watch Andor, I'm like, okay, so where's I'm trying to remember where
Right.
does this fit or whatever.
Hmm.
Sorry, for sure, I wish I'd rewatched Andor, right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And definitely should have just to get me in the mood, right? Like just to binge it. And so if you haven't already,
Oh
that
yeah.
would be my number one recommendation. Two, this 4BBY thing, it's just interesting, right?
Right.
That's the first time they're helping you. Not that people who needed help like me would understand what BBY was,
Right.
but anyways, first time I just noticed it and I just wanted to say it's interesting.
Right. Yeah, like this show, again, we've said it before, like recently, is based on like you knowing most of your Star Wars from the original trilogy and then the prequel trilogy and a bit of this, sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
But I know it from that and Clone Wars and Mandalorian, Boba
Yeah.
Fett, all the extra shows that are
Yeah.
connected into this world.
Yeah.
So like I know what BBY stands for before the Battle of
Hmm.
Yarvin, the first Star Wars movie, but you
I
didn't.
never heard of Yarvin. I didn't know what
Right,
it
yeah.
was or anything. But anyway, so those are two quick little things, but we really wanted to talk about some of the tech that we'd seen
Oh
in
yeah.
this show. And if I might, I just wanted to say that um, it's interesting because Star Wars, well, first off, had the ultimate tech, right? The
Mm.
lightsaber,
Right.
for instance. And but in this one, they weren't really trying to blow you away with tech, and maybe even they're part of that retro tech thing is was
Right.
here, right?
A bit
So,
more subtle tech. Like they
mhm,
didn't bring in like this. Look at this crazy new thing. It's like,
right.
oh yeah, there's the music machine. Let's bring it out
Hmm.
at like the space, almost like the space marriage. Like yeah, like the clean retro future architecture kind of reminds me a bit of like Fallout stuff. Like
Right.
especially the cleanliness and like the cylindrical doors that have like airlock hisses when they open.
That and like the art dealer, the woman that works with the art dealer,
Hmm.
right, who's part of the rebellion,
Pulls out a console.
when she checks her like all the buttons are big, like all the buttons are big old-fashioned buttons sort of,
Right.
and yeah, when she checks her communication
She's got to
secret
like
communication,
fiddle with a few
this drawer
things.
comes out and there's almost like reel to reel Akai kind of like 1960s, 1970s kind of space tech and audio
Right,
tech and
right.
different
Yeah,
things,
like solid functional pieces, not a screen. There's one or two screens, but that's
and
like showing
that's
a space map, not
and that's the other thing you pointed out. Even his fancy new TIE fighter test, whatever it is, there were no screens. Like
yeah,
it's
like
not
there's like a few
like they
screens to
still
show
push
like
you.
locations and stuff,
Right.
but like when he's locking and like when he's locking on to like enemy stuff, there's like it kind of like a video game where it shows like a blue screen, then like a red locked on to enemy screen. But yeah, no, other than that, there's no like, oh, touch this screen to like look at all this stuff. There's you press
and
a
and
button
and
and that
there's
the
no
characters don't
there's
even
no
know.
there's no there's no
Touch, right,
holographs.
yeah.
There's no like, why do you need screens? Or you know what I mean? Like, in other words, if we were making a movie about the future, we would have
Screens out
screens
of the
and hologram.
wazoo. Yeah.
Well, or just like if we wanted to say like, oh man, these people are like in the future, there'd be like
Hard light projectors.
holographic robots following you around and trying to, can I help you?
Right,
Like
yeah,
in Halo or
they like if you're on a call with them, they're not gonna be like on like a little dingy little screen. No, they're gonna have like a full body holograph projector
but
that they can talk to you
right,
through and
but
see you stuff.
and so it's interesting in some ways is that what do you call it, not the graphics but the like
The
the story,
tech.
well, yeah, kind of like the meat, the bones, whatever it is of this story,
Hmm.
right, of Star Wars. There's an aspect that's constraining,
Right.
right?
Like
Because this
constrained
literally
because
was released. We're coming up to the 50th year. We're in like year 48 right now since Star Wars released. And so this is predates it. So they can't have like,
yeah.
because every year that we exist now, we realize like we're able to imagine a crazier future,
Right,
right?
yes.
Like for instance, drones. There are no hardly any drones in this thing, right?
Right, yeah.
Like in the future, you'd think like, oh, everyone's gonna have a personal drone and a flying drone and a
Right.
holographic drone and a this and a that,
Yeah, but
you know.
sadly we haven't.
But what I mean is that they're not given to the wrong director. They could try and jam all that shit in here,
Right.
which if this was the first movie of the whole universe would be fine. But
Right.
then it's like the context or the syntax or whatever it
Right,
is,
because
right?
moving forward or backwards, they have to remember, okay, there are a shit ton of drones that you have to add to your stuff, you
And
know?
increasingly, you never know what movie somebody might watch or how they might watch it or whatever. And
Right.
so this is leading into
The original
the
trilogy. So
original
like
trilogy.
they
So you
have to
can't
constrain to the fact that those movies were not,
buttons
yeah, they were
and
not made on like obviously the small budget, but they didn't have the biggest budget. Like
it's
they had to
it's not
r
even the budget though.
the
It's
lack of tech that they had in
in
comparison.
1976 or whenever they made Star Wars, right? Not when even when it was released. They didn't have cell phones. They couldn't imagine, Luke, when he was on the Millennium Falcon, had headphones with a cable, right?
Right.
Which is just crazy.
There was a scene where Luke and like some fighters are destroying the first Death Star, and some guys get behind them. So they don't like turn on a screen to show them what's behind them. They have to physically like look around.
Right, right.
Like
And
this is
which is obviously we fighter jets have had that stuff for
yeah,
decades or whatever, right? Like
right.
it's so that what's interesting is what was the future 48 years ago
And what they could
is now there's some constraints on kind of
right.
what how they can imagine it,
Right. Like
you know?
like they didn't have these huge CGI effects. They added stuff
And
in
part
the
of it was
original was
probably
like
and it's
later on, but
right.
like they didn't like all of this a lot of the stuff that you see is just literally what people made. Like the original
But it's
the
true, but it's twofold. It's not just like they couldn't do things because they couldn't create them. They had to make, styrofoam ships and try and fly them through the air. It's also that people couldn't imagine
imagine.
that much into the future, where now we have cell phone, like
Yeah,
now we you know what I mean?
we don't have all the tech they have, but we have te more tech in certain areas than they could ever imagine. Like we have
And it's easy
cell
it's
phones.
easy for us to imagine steps ahead, right?
Right.
Like drones and like in other words, if we, even if we were to try and write a sci-fi, which I think we do a fabulous job on,
We
uh, you okay, what does it look like? Is it chip
right.
implants? Is it even implants? Is it this? Is it, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Like
Like all
like when you think of future tech stuff, you think of like these clean, sleek, like 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 screens and chrome out
we're
of every
flying through space. You
right,
know what I
but
mean?
you don't think of like, okay, you want to hack into, you want to like find a location, put it into this like oversized typewriter basically to
Right.
find this stuff. You want to locate this stuff. Here is like a small machine with like four buttons that will somehow be able to do all of this stuff.
Well,
And like,
but and I'm just sort of thinking, right? Because we've been watching, things like Fallout
mhm,
and Silo and some others that have this heavy 1950s retro tech.
mhm,
And in a way, Star Wars has to have a kind of like 1970s retro tech. You know what I mean?
right.
Throughout it, like you forget that it has to kind of
Stay in the
maintain. It has,
lane of the original
yeah, it
stuff. Like,
has to maintain it. It's not retro tech. It's not like Fallout retro tech. It's
right,
kind
where
of like, well,
this is the world.
this was the retro. This is how they imagined tech back then, sort
Right,
of.
like there's no nice, clean stuff. It's buttons and doodads that you
Right,
have to that you have to have a manual to know what stuff you put in what combination, or else you'll blow up the whole ship. Like it's no like, okay, I need to get to this place, look at my emails and talk with this other person. Okay, let me put like three buttons in and I'll be able to do all of that. No, you've got to go through, you've got to click in like a connector into this
right.
port and like you've got to twist these knobs to try to find this
Look,
connection
yeah,
and stuff.
look at again to the woman that was like managing the secret communications in the art dealer thing.
Hmm.
There was like a sound that beeped, and she came and she plugged a certain key in. It was very physical. It
Right,
was,
like
you know,
physical stuff,
yeah.
not
But
screen
it it
wise.
it we noticed the retro tech of, or I did, of that stuff, but really it's not so far, like the
Right.
spinning wheels and things,
Hmm.
but it's still not so far away from Star Wars, again, just because they didn't it probably was their ability to, like, special effects, right?
Right,
That they
yeah.
had to imagine a future and be able to deliver it. But anyways, it's just interesting, right? To your
Yeah,
point, no screens,
yeah,
right? That's the biggest thing,
it's so
you know.
fascinating to see how like in a lot of stuff, a lot of future stuff, again,
Hmm.
they imagine like stuff that we have, but like a better and so much of it, like and so much like, oh, in the future we're gonna have all humans are gonna have a robot servant and they're gonna
Yeah,
have implants. But like no, some people in this Star Wars universe have robots. They got robotic implants, sure, but that's not the norm. That's not like
right,
everyone has it. This is like
right.
some people.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
like
but also to a point that we talked about a little bit earlier, um, they're very, or and maybe it wasn't clear but I do remember you mentioning this. There weren't really any aliens, right? It
yeah,
was
like
all
this,
humans. It was, there wasn't a lot of ethnic diversity,
yeah, which
but anyways, the whole, that's another interesting part of it, right? It was very, in some
social
ways.
commentary and stuff.
Yeah, and the number of people that we saw, I don't know, it was like there was the farming community, there's the wedding, there's the,
Hmm.
he has some interactions, there wasn't, I don't know. Anyways, but
Yeah, like okay, let's talk, for example, about the wedding.
right.
Wedding, uh, wedding was really cool. It was interesting to see kind of
Yeah.
like that arc and like all the different styles. Like for example, the wedding felt really, not to sound rude, like had a Japanese
Yeah, no, you're right.
like
I
the
felt that as well, right?
like the
Like,
husband, the soon to be
even the
husband had like a
hiking
bum
and even the hiking. Yeah, he definitely had certain, I don't
stuff,
know,
and like people had like long
the
big
long
hats
hair
with like
type.
a big
Well, like hiking, when they went hiking on that trail, that seemed very Japanese, right?
right and
Yeah.
like
Or Asian, anyways, maybe
yeah, well, yeah,
Chinese or
yeah,
Japanese.
yeah, very really pretty, like really beautiful looks and
Yeah,
styles of it, and
yeah,
like
yeah. The whole thing was very
yeah.
stylized. Yeah, the wedding.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and the wedding, like it was ceremonies and like like pomp
hmm,
and stance and like,
yeah,
oh, we've got to follow this like textbook of stuff
right.
that needs to happen
Yeah,
for
they
this
did a nice.
very important wedding.
Yeah, they brought us into
Yeah,
a space age, not space age, but a culture, right?
like
But
not medieval style, but like
yeah,
medieval ideas of chivalry and what is proper to do in this
Yeah,
context and what is
there was a certain culture there.
like
I will also say that the circular doorways reminded me a bit of Bermuda has this kind of like
mhm,
moon gates
mhm.
thing
Yeah,
that
um yeah, there's that and the scene where like she goes through that door that she has to say a phrase or her mom has to say a phrase.
right.
She has to stand in front of her.
Yeah.
Then she has to walk over a
Yeah.
branch and then go up to this little
Yeah, it was a
pad
whole
and not
cultural,
and like and there's all of that really cool stuff.
mhm.
And then once the marriage is finalized, they bring out an ancient statue to mark this important ceremony.
Well, he
And then
kind
they
of like
bring
bought back a stole. That was a
yeah,
bit weird. He bought back an ancient stolen
yeah.
statue. Now it's not for public, but he's got it, you know.
Yeah, and then and then after all this, beautiful ceremony stuff, okay, bring out the disco robot.
Well, yeah, I
And
was gonna
then
say we're gonna wrap up this episode with the disco robot. Every show needs a essentially a drug scene, right?
yeah, no,
Like
like the
drugs and
mom
dancing and
is going through a ton of stress seeing her daughter go through the same thing she went through and
yeah,
like her daughter not wanting to her saying like I wish you were drunk. And she's like,
right.
"Okay, I'm gonna drink myself because I'm extremely
Yeah.
depressed that this is happening."
Well, yeah,
And like
freaked out that somebody's basically gonna blackmail me, right?
yeah, like
Yeah,
I'm sad that
right.
you were left, but I'm so happy that you've returned.
Exactly.
You've
Exactly.
you filled the silo-shaped hole in my heart.
Yeah.
Uh
All right. Well, that's the first three bits of Andor, some talk of tech, and I think we, for all of you walking to work, listening to us, I know that's very popular
yeah.
with our subscribers.
12 subscribers
Yeah,
now.
well into the double digits,
Yeah, yeah.
and off we go.
Yeah.
So until we meet again,
Until meet again,
looking forward to talking more about Andor
eh,
4, 5, 6, and
whatever else we see.
whatever else we see. All right,
Until we meet again.
until we meet again.